I just saw Shaquille O'Neal in the back.
It's Shaquille!
Shaquille, who cares? I saw him with his shoes off. The guy's 5'11".
Hey everybody, Brian Zane here with another classic pay-per-view review, and this one comes to us right in the middle of what some call the single greatest month in the history of the planet. I'm talking about Hulkamania. That's enough of that now. Time for us to look at WCW Bash the Beach 1994 from July 17th at the Orlando Arena in Orlando, Florida. This show marks the WCW in-ring debut of the company's biggest signing they ever got in Hulk Hogan. Now, as you saw last week in my review of King of the Ring 1993, Hogan was gone from the World Wrestling Federation soon after his title match with Yokozuna. He worked a little bit in Japan. He filmed the show Thunder in Paradise, but as that show was being filmed, Hogan was greeted on set one day by Eric Bischoff and Ric Flair, who approached Hogan and convinced him to sign with the company so they could get that big dream match between Hogan and Flair the Federation had passed on just a few years before. Is this the big boost that WCW needs to rise up the ranks and finally compete on a big level with the World Wrestling Federation? We'll find out, but first, let's hear from our sponsors this week at Manscaped.
Bonjour, je suis Claude, eccentric supermodel, here to bring you the joy of Manscaped, where all the people go to look their best, even if they cannot be as pretty as Claude. Gaze upon Le Performance Package 4.0. It has all you need to make your body look its best, with the lawnmower, waterproof, cordless, use it anywhere. But sometimes a lawnmower is just too big. That's why they also have Le Weed Whacker, perfect for trimming those smaller areas. Claude always smells good, especially where it counts. That's why he always uses Le Crop Preserver deodorant, as well as the Crop Toner. It's for your balls. And for the limited time, the Performance Package comes with the gifts, like the Shed Travel Bag. Convenience. And the Manscaped Boxer Shorts, with the contours that are too sexy and revealing for YouTube. Oh, that a law.
And if that's not enough to convince you, look at what Manscaped did for me, huh? Well, I guess I'll be going now.
Treat yourself. Go to manscaped.com and use the code WWW to get 20% off your first order plus the free shipping. Remember, Claude loves you, but he loves Manscaped even more.
When these two worlds collide, a new universe will emerge. Oh my god, the hyperbole in this opening hype package. 14,000 folks in the Orlando Arena, 225,000 pay-per-view buys would be the biggest number they had done at that point in company history, a record that would not be topped until Uncensored 96, which, in case you don't recall, had the main event of the Doomsday Cage match where Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage beat like 10 other guys on their own. This show, for all intents and purposes, is WCW's WrestleMania. I don't mean that so much as Bash the Beach will now usurp Starrcade as the company's biggest show of the year. I just mean in terms of the hype and the pomp they give this particular event. Oh, it definitely has that Mania feeling in terms of not just the stars they have in the main event, the amount of marketing they're putting into it, but also the celebrities they're going to have on this show. Because not only do you have Turner execs like WCW President Bill Shaw and baseball legend Hank Aaron, you also have Thunder in Paradise co-star Chris Lemon, Shaquille O'Neal's going to be there, Mr. T is part of it. The stars are truly out for this one. Also, if you look front row hard cam, you'll notice Hulk Hogan's family there. Linda and Brooke and Nick, they're all there. It's actually pretty nice to see. Tony Schiavone and Bobby Heenan doing commentary for now at least. They open the show alongside Mean Gene Okerlund. They break down the main event. Then they toss to country star Darren Norwood in the ring, who sings the Star Spangled Banner. Look at that shirt. Well, it's not the opening match of a mid-90s WCW pay-per-view if Johnny B. Bad isn't part of it. He's here to challenge Lord Steve Regal for the World Television Championship. This match was meant to be Sting challenging Regal, but a week earlier on Saturday night, sensuous Sherry jumped the ring, very obviously disguised as a man. She raked Sting's eye mid-deathlock, taking him out with an eye injury, so Johnny B is called in to replace Sting. They did advertise that Sting would be in Johnny's corner for this match, but for whatever reason, they they decide not to go through with that. Johnny B. Bad looking Johnny B. bored as hell when he first comes to the curtain, but he does pick up the energy as he makes his way down the aisle. Look at the sparklers and the glitter for him and the bad blaster and all that stuff. Lord Regal accompanied by his attendant Sir William, who's actually played by Memphis legend Bill Dundee. Also a really fascinating stat here, Regal's only like 26 years old here in this match. Lots of grappling between the two early on. Glitter everywhere, Shivani says, echoing my exact thoughts. Did no one think to sweep all this up? I love that Japanese arm drag by Bad. So quick here. More graps. Regal tries to powder out of the match but comes back in, gets the arm worked over again. Bad dominating Regal forever until Steve comes back with a headbutt followed up with a drop kick. We cut to Chris Lemon and Bobby Heenan on commentary saying he's a real lemon all right. Ooh, you ain't kidding, because after Thunder in Paradise, that show basically killed Chris Lemon's acting career, and he was Hollywood royalty. He was the son of Jack Lemmon. Regal is just unrelenting with forearms. Even though he's getting beat up by Johnny here, Bad goes on this offensive tear near the end. Regal gets a pinfall, grabs onto Sir William's umbrella. The referee kicks it. Bad with the roll-up, but Regal fights out of it, stacks up Bad for the win. This was kind of a hidden gem for me, this matchup. I went into it with like no expectations, thinking, oh, these guys aren't going to have very good chemistry, but they actually really impressed me. I thought that it was cool seeing Johnny basically keeping up with Regal for a lot of the grappling. Seeing Steve Regal with those like physical, hard connecting shots and everything was fun to watch. The graps was there. The heel work by Regal was fantastic. I thought these two worked really well. And I'll tell you what, there's a reason. I figured watching this matchup, I figured out why Johnny B. Bad was like always in this like opening match on a pay-per-view situation, more often than not fighting for the TV championship, sometimes with DDP, sometimes not. There's a reason that he was always kind of put in this opening match situation, because like look at him, look at the whole entrance. He comes up with the robe and the glitter guns and everything, and his look, his physique, everything about him was this package of like, how can you possibly not look at this guy and not react to him? Like, he's there for the big opening pop basically, and I think it actually works really well. It's why he did it for so long. After the match, we see Mean Gene in the ring introducing the wrestling legend and recently elected official in Antonio Inoki. He gets a nice plaque for all his work in wrestling. Back out comes Steve Regal and Sir William. Regal talking trash and says that if Inoki's getting an award, he should as well. Like, dude, you're a champion. That's pretty much an award. Regal is not playing to hard cam, sadly. They cannot get a good shot of his face for some reason, but Regal says he would beat Inoki up if he weren't retired, but those are fighting words. It gets broken up though. It's very interesting stuff. Regal and Inoki would wrestle a month later at Clash of the Champions in that classic wrestling hotbed of Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Bobby Heenan takes a break for a minute now as Jesse Ventura joins Shivani for commentary. What do you think Regal was thinking there, Jess? You have to ask him, not me. Great insight, Jess. So glad that we brought you in here to do this commentary job. And you can tell just from like the look on his face and just the complete lack of articulation in his response, he's got one foot out the door already, because, you know, his hatred for Hulk Hogan is well documented, it is well justified, and yeah, with Hogan here now, you better believe Jesse wants to be anywhere but WCW. Up next, a big boy battle up ahead as Vader battles the Guardian Angel, aka the Big Boss Man in a red jacket. By the way, did Ray Traylor get permission from the actual Guardian Angels to do the Guardian Angel gimmick? Angel jumps Harley Race unprovoked, and that allows Vader to attack as the match begins. Vader throwing his weight around a bit, but Angel just picks Vader up like it was nothing. My God. Gets him up again for another body slam, just holds him for ages. On the outside, Race gets involved again. That allows Vader to attack back. These two have a great slugfest here in the corner. Vader takes him down with an avalanche, then goes for a freaking second rope sunset flip, which Angel blocks, hits a big sit. Vader takes Angel down with a snug-looking clothesline, then awkwardly falls into a leg submission. More punches. Vader takes Angel down, hits the Vader bomb, then a top rope moonsault for God's sake. Vader hurts himself on the landing though, can't make the cover. Harley Race goes up, Angel beels him off, shit cans them both. The referee is lightly smooshed, Race handing Vader a nightstick. Angel cuts him off, grabs the stick, but before he can even do anything with it, the referee sees him holding it and disqualifies him on the spot. I really enjoyed this match up until the finish. I was just so blown away by the collective athleticism and strength and agility both men possessed. I always knew that Boss Man was like a big dude, but I never thought about how like strong of a guy he was until I saw him picking up Vader with the greatest of ease. Easier than like Hulk Hogan would do when he picked up Vader, and Hogan was all muscle. So definitely a fun contest, very physical, very fun, but then that finish really killed it for me. Back to Tony and Jesse at ringside. Ventura is very short and sweet about the main event.
Interested to get your comments on Hogan versus Flair coming up later on.
I already made my pick. Nature
your boy Ric Flair.
Okay.
It's not a huge surprise that Jesse is not long for this company after the pay-per-view, and not just because of his unprofessional attitude and demeanor when talking about anything Hogan related on air, but also, there's the rumor that he was fired by Bischoff because he was caught sleeping at a TV taping, but I'm sure if you ask Jesse, it had more to do with Hogan leaving. But yeah, Jesse's performance in this show is pretty unprofessional. We get a recap of this dart match that took place before this show, where a female wrestler, Molly McShane, took on the Sassy Boys all by herself, and Jimmy Hart was the special guest referee. The guys that she was beating up were Ron and Fez, who were a couple of Orlando area DJs at the time. Up next, Arn Anderson and Dustin Rhodes team up to take on Terry Funk and Buckhouse Buck, who are accompanied by Colonel Robert Parker and the man called Ming. There have been issues, they say, between the Funks and the Rhodes family. I keep hearing that almost every classic show I review, no matter the year. After Dustin wrestled at Slamboree, Funk jumped him and clocked him with the branding iron, busting him wide open. This feud, of course, going way back and is ongoing for months. He recruits Arn Anderson to help him out, and Arn agrees to team with him at Clash of the Champions. By the way, Funk and Buck, Buck and Funk. Funk and Buck and Buck and Funk and Funk and Buck and Funk and Buck and Buck and Funk. Say that 5 times fast. Arn's starting out slow with his opponents here, but Dustin comes out guns blazing once he tags in, just unloading on Buck here. He gets away with dumping both of them over the top rope when the referee doesn't see it. Dustin goes to the cross body and misses, tumbling out and clearing the steps. Damn, Dustin, will you ever learn not to do that move? Funk brawling with Dustin on the outside. How do they make no effort to clean up the glitter off this floor, to sweep it under the ring? Dustin gets worked over more by Buck and Funk. Funk flops his way over to make a tag. I've changed the rules of the match. I'm a fish now. Dustin mounts a huge comeback out of the corner all by himself to an awesome reaction. Dude just kicking all kinds of ass. Finally goes to tag in Arn Anderson, who comes in and drops his own partner with a DDT. Funk is dragged atop Dustin's body. The referee sees none of this and counts the 3, and Funk and Buck win. They go after Dustin's arm after the bell, and the way he sells it is intense. He is shrieking in pain and cussing in a way you don't hear during a match before it gets broken up. I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. This is a very well executed, which is essentially a handicap match with a twist at the end. It was so convincing and so well done, I didn't even think about the twist ending happening until about halfway through, where I realized, oh, this is what's going to happen. But man, it's a finish so good, they used it the following year at Halloween Havoc 95 with Sting and Ric Flair. Speaking of Halloween Havoc, Dustin would get his revenge on Arn later in this year at Halloween Havoc 94 in a singles match. Also pointing out here, no chickens were harmed in the making of this match. Home Run King Hank Aaron having a chat with Tony and Bobby at ringside. He says he's going to pull for both Flair and Hogan in the main event. Bobby says he could run for president. Mean Gene elsewhere backstage with the champ Ric Flair and sensuous Sherry. Flair saying all these dignitaries that are here today are here for Flair, not Hogan, and that the immortal one will be history. Sherry chiming in saying Hogan's career is failing and that he'll have to beat the man to become the man. U.S. Championship on the line next as stunning Steve Austin defense against Ricky Steamboat, who is accompanied by his severed dragon heads. It's a feud that goes back a ways here. Of course, Steve Austin was a long-reigning TV champion until he was beat by Ricky Steamboat back in '92. Austin has gone on record multiple times saying Steamboat was his best rival over his years in his career, so I'm definitely looking forward to this one. Austin jumps Steamboat at the start, but the dragon takes over. Austin leapfrogging Steamboat, appearing to hurt his knee. Schiavone sees right through it, and so does Steamboat. He's not fooled, running around the ring and back in, off the ropes into a nice sleeper, slowing things down a bit as Ricky works Steve's arm. Bit of an awkward collision that turns into a pinfall, so nice recovery. Hits the big Alabama slam, does Austin, to take over, beats him up for a long time, makes him wave to the camera. Steamboat with a stun gun out of nowhere, taking a page from Austin's book. These guys are wrestling a clinic here. Lots of near falls by Steamboat. The tombstone countered several times, ending with Ricky hitting it. Austin tries yoinking the ref in the way of a dive, but it doesn't pay off. Referee tries to disqualify him, but Steamboat convinces the ref to keep it going. Soon after, though, Austin rolling through a crossbody, getting his feet on the ropes for a dirty pin. Austin wins and retains. I give it 4 stars out of 5. This is my favorite match of the evening. I think it's the strongest match all night. Between this future legend who's on the rise and this already kind of living legend who, up until his untimely injury a couple of months after this, is still going pretty strong. These guys have great chemistry together. together. And when Austin says Steamboat was his greatest rival, matches like this are the reason why. Steamboat would beat Austin shortly after this at Clash of the Champions to regain the U.S. Championship, but like I mentioned, after this he would suffer that back injury which made him retire for many, many years and give the belt back to Steve Austin in a fall brawl, who then lost it to Jim Duggan within minutes. Backstage, Mean Gene enters the locker room of Colonel Rob Parker and his stud stable. They're partying it up. They can't get a shot at Arn Anderson because Rob's blocking the camera. Arn explaining himself for what happened earlier, saying that after he was beaten half to death last year in his real-life fight with Sid Vicious, he decided to no longer be a crusader fighting other people's fights. He was going to fight for himself, and Dustin made a mistake in looking to him for help. Gene tells the ladies in the room they ought to be ashamed of themselves, them being so pretty hanging out with these ruffians.
Ladies, you should be ashamed of yourselves. Beautiful
Ladies and gentlemen,
In your semi-main event for the tag titles, you have Cactus Jack and Kevin Sullivan defending against Pretty Wonderful. That's Pretty Paul Roma and Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff. Why don't they just call them the Two Pauls? Jack and Sullivan are accompanied by Kevin's kayfabe brother Dave/Evad Sullivan. Those two won the tag belts back in April, but it wasn't long before that where Cactus infamously lost part of his right ear in that brutal match with Vader in Munich, Germany. So Foley had to choose between getting the surgery to get his ear reattached and everything, or going back to America to win the tag belts. Guess which one he picked. Also, about a month before this match and before Jack went over to ECW full-time, he was on loan there as part of an agreement with ECW and WCW, and during a promo, Jack spat on his tag belt, which apparently rubbed some people the wrong way. Starting out slow as the match begins, I'm not entirely sure who the faces are supposed to be in this contest. Roma is very cocky and Cactus responds by, "It bites a nose." We get that one spot where Jack blocks a whip into the corner to save his partner. Pretty Wonderful try the same thing and it backfires. I love that. Fighting on the outside, Jack and Sullivan working well together. It looks like Jack's going to dive off the apron, but instead calmly goes down the steps and continues the assault. Sullivan ramming the heads of both men together in the corner. Then the fans start doing the wave because the match is kind of boring. And hey, let's get a wide shot of it too while we're at it. Genius, guys. Orndorff with a pile driver to Sullivan as Jack casually shoves the referee. Roma tags in, hits an elbow drop on Kevin. Orndorff doing something before a knee drop, and I wonder if that's the move that helped inspire the Road Dogg years later. Sully dodging Roma's flying attack, we get the double hot tag to Cactus and Orndorff. Cactus has Paul pinned, but the referee is distracted. Roma pulling Cactus up by his ankles and holds on as Orndorff makes the cover and wins. New tag team champs. I give it 1 star out of 5. The match, sadly, was pretty boring. I thought that watching it, and then I saw the fans doing the wave, and my fears were pretty confirmed. I mean, there were some bright spots peppered in this thing. They did the best they could, but yeah, I just wasn't feeling this match. Michael Buffer in the ring to introduce WCW Commissioner Nick Bockwinkel and very special guest, the center for the Orlando Magic, young Shaquille O'Neal. He is there to present the title to the winner of our main event. You just know he's getting ready for his big in-ring debut in about 22 years. In our much-hyped main event for the WCW World Championship, the man, the 11-time champion, Ric Flair, defends against the immortal Hulk Hogan, making his in-ring debut for WCW. Hulk Hogan arrived in June of '94. He was whisked away from the world of TV by that young dreamer Bischoff. And of course, on June 8th, we got that famous ticker tape parade at the Disney MGM studios for Hulk's arrival. And it wasn't long after Hogan got there that he challenged Flair for the world title at Bash at the Beach. Now, this was a monumental get for WCW. It really can't be overstated just how significant not only signing Hulk Hogan was, but getting this match made, because of course the WWF, they had the chance to pull the trigger on it. That was supposed to be the main event for WrestleMania 8. Obviously it didn't happen. So for WCW to be the ones to truly get this matchup for the first time on pay-per-view is incredibly important to their success in the company's history from where they were at that time. And you know, Hogan, he was gone for wrestling from a little bit of time. They say it was a 3-year hiatus. I know, 93 wasn't a great year, but that's a bit disingenuous. He was gone for a little bit, and his stock was certainly not as high as it had been. Wasn't maybe as physically large as he had been, but still arguably the biggest star in the business at that time. Like, that's part of why the Federation slumped for a bit after he left, was he kind of took his ratings with him, and there was no backup plan. There was no new Hulk Hogan despite their best efforts, and they were going to be a while before they got a new star. WCW picked up Hulk Hogan, who, yeah, was not the same as he was, 10 years earlier, but still a hell of a draw, a hell of a deal. And so, yeah, obviously Hulk Hogan being signed there was greatly greatly important and significant to WCW at that time. Michael Buffer saying, 25 years ago, man walked on the moon, and now two of the greatest stars in wrestling are about to collide. Truly, two events of equal importance. Flair coming out with sensuous Sherry, Hogan arrives with Jimmy Hart and Mr. T. We get some stare downs, some shtick, Hogan mocking Flair's strut. We get lots of arm work back and forth here. Sherry is used as a shield a couple of times. Hogan goes on a big run, throwing Flair around pillar to post. Sherry though with a leg trip. That allows Flair to hit the big knee to the back. Fighting goes to the outside. Sherry grabs a chair, but Jimmy Hart takes it away from her. Good Lord, someone get that camera guy a water. He is looking rough by the end of this show. Flair and Hogan are slugging it out, lots of back and forth. Chinlock is applied for a long time on Hogan, but the Hulkster fights back, goes for the leg drop, but Flair moves. Flair going for the figure four, but Hogan is able to counter into a roll-up. We get a kick out. Big suplex, but Hogan pops right back up. The big boot, the cover. Sherry pulling the ref out of the ring, decking Jimmy Hart with a shoe. Sherry and Flair double team Hogan for a moment. Flair locks in the figure four, but we do get a rope break. More Sherry chicanery, choking him with the pantyhose now. Flair works the leg, goes for the strikes, but Hogan is undeterred. Sherry up top again, goes for the splash, but she misses. Flair is beeled off the top. Clothesline to Flair, right hook to Sherry because she's out of place. I don't know why that move looks so funny to me though. Hogan locking in a weak figure four. Both managers now on the apron. Mr. T taking Sherry out of the picture, but Flair hits Hogan with the foreign object. The cover and a kick out. We get our third Hulk up of the match. The boot, the leg drop, Hogan covers and wins his first of 6 WCW world titles. I'm going to give it 3 stars out of 5. You know, this was a Hogan giving you his best hits, Flair giving you his best hits. Nothing about this match was particularly surprising, but I think all the ingredients were there to make it a very successful outing. The crowd hung on everything everyone in this match did. There were a lot of moving parts with managers and whatnot, but I think it all looked fine. These guys definitely delivered, and Hogan, for someone who hadn't had a match in a couple of years at that point, or a year and a half, what have you, it was still really, he was able to perform, and Flair did a great job working with him. So these guys absolutely delivered a solid main event in this bold new era of WCW. They're light on time, so after the match, everyone is celebrating with Hogan. Brother Brutai is there, B. Brian Blair is there, Hacksaw is there. Let's all go to this locker room. Oh, never mind, let's go to this room instead, where Hogan cuts a big post-match promo thanking all the Maniacs. Hogan would go on to hold the belt for nearly 470 days, finally losing it at Halloween Havoc 95 to the Giant, but I've already talked plenty about that show. My grade for WCW's inaugural Bash at the Beach pay-per-view from 1994 is a B. It's a pretty solid show here. WCW is in a strange place, and things are going to get stranger in the near future with a lot of comings and goings in the wake of Hulk Hogan's arrival, but this is a great look at what the company has right now and who they've got. I think that a lot of the undercard, barring 1 or 2 matches, were really good. The main event delivered, and it's funny because they would go to that well so many more times in WCW's lifespan, and of course they all got worse and more drawn out and agonizing every time, but that first time getting it was A, monumental for their success, and B, it was just nice. It was cool to see it finally happen. So again, kudos to WCW for doing that. It was a main event that was worthy of the hype, and you know, all in all, Bash the Beach 94, it's a pretty good show. You should check it out if you've not. But what did you think of Bash the Beach, folks? I want to hear about it in the comment section below. Next week here on the channel, we are going back to the long forms in our continuing coverage of Hulkamania, where I'll be looking at Hulk Hogan's 3-year run in TNA. It's going to be a real doozy, folks. If you don't want to miss that episode dropping, subscribe to the channel if you haven't. Click the bell icon to get all the notifications. As far as the next classic pay-per-view I'm doing, well, let's just say it will be tied in to that topic. But until then, I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.